unusual couple, you know.
Oh, I don't think that was ever in question.
Good morning, nerds and geeks out there. How are you guys doing? Spring break is over, and we're back for a brand new episode of the PJCN Watercooler, talking the series finale recap of WandaVision. And
we're back.
There he is. Look at the golden tones of my buddy Maxwell. Hey, friend, how are you?
I'm not home, as you can see.
No, you're not.
I have this lovely door behind me, and would be perfect for someone to pop out and stab me from behind, like a Wes Craven film.
Yeah, but we're not going to let that happen today.
Well, I have no control over who may be hiding in that bathroom.
Well, I'm hoping that doesn't happen. But, I mean, at least if we have it on video, we could maybe find the guy who did it.
Easily identify. Well, if he's wearing a mask.
That's true. Then we might be fucked.
Then a mystery would be afoot, and it would be a whole whodunit, and we need to... the whole thing.
Yeah, it'd be a whole thing. But we don't have to worry about that. How was your week off, man? You know, we took a little bit of a spring break here, and here we are.
I went to the country, to Connecticut, in the middle of the woods, and it didn't feel much like spring because there's still snow on the ground because it's so cold it won't melt.
Fair. I can see where your mind is at.
But it's been very relaxing. Yesterday, Elizabeth and I saw Raya and the Last Dragon in a movie theater, which we had to ourselves because we rented it. It was amazing. We've just been relaxing. It's been nice.
That's good, man. I'm glad that you were getting some much-deserved rest and relaxation, and you got to enjoy it. Do we have anything coming up, though? Now that we're
kind of. Our schedule is still a little on the fritz. I will say tomorrow, the Unwind is here. We've had some ideas about what we may do tomorrow. Nothing's confirmed yet, but we're definitely going to chill with y'all at 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern tomorrow. Monday, we are doing a watch-along. We don't know what we're watching yet. So for watch-along announcements for both Monday and Friday, be sure to tune in into the Unwind for those announcements.
I'm excited.
Your shirt?
Twin Peaks.
Twin Peaks, yeah. That's not horror, but it's like mystery thriller.
Yeah, mystery thriller. It fits the theme.
Tuesday, finally, Book Nook is here. Dwayne and myself, we're joined by Aiden Cossack. I hope I'm saying his name properly. We're doing Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. I adore this book. I can't wait to discuss it. It's a long one, so I think there's going to be a lot of conversation. I'd expect our episode to be longer than last time just because it's a 500-plus page tome. But again, incredible book. I hope you all join us. I hope you've had a chance to read it and you enjoyed it as well. We have some Suddenly soundtracks coming up. So on Wednesday, this is a patron pick by our gold producer, Sean Wingblade. He is a huge fan of Linkin Park. So Chris and a lovely panel are going to be going through the album Hybrid Theory song by song and ranking it on the patented Suddenly soundtrack scale, hard rockin' all the way down to skip it. And then the following week, March 17th, this is going to be a really cool show. It's added to playlist Elton John, so all the panelists will be picking their 10 favorite Elton John songs. But Don Gormanley, who you've probably seen on the channel before, he competed in one of the Billy Joel matches on the Fight Club. He was on the Little Shop of Horrors episode of Suddenly Soundtrack. He's going to be performing the songs on vocal and piano as we go through them, and he's a hugely talented performer. And then just looking ahead to Suddenly Soundtracks, April 14th is Queen Innuendo. April 28th is added to playlist the best live performances of all time. And May 5th, and I am incredibly excited for this, is Soundboard Survivor Island, John Williams scores. So instead of going track by track, we will be putting whole scores against each other to try and end up with our collective top 10 John Williams scores of all time. And there's a few in particular that I'm going to fight for that I'm not sure are going to be at the top of everyone else's list.
There's one in particular that you and I think share a commonality.
Might even be his best ever work, and it doesn't get discussed as such, and I'm going to fight hard for that.
Yeah, but I'm super excited for the John Williams one. I should also be doing Linkin Park. I'm a huge fan of Linkin Park. Originally, it was going to be like a much deeper show dealing with like all the songs of Linkin Park, but I think cutting it down just to Hybrid Theory was probably better out the gate, and I'm super excited for that. Lots of good stuff coming up, man.
Tonight on Twitch, it's Family Game Night. There's going to be some Mario Golf Toadstool Tour, some patented Chris Clark's Mario Party Madness, and I am trying to convince him to sell Chris Clark's Mario Party Madness shirts, assuming TeePublic doesn't take it down immediately with having the Mario Party logo. I don't think they will because there's all sorts of logos people don't own on there, and maybe some Mario Tennis. I have no idea who the panel is, but it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
We do have patrons, and you have to forgive me because this has not been updated. But our executive producers, Brandy Parker, Brandon Buckingham, and Ricardo Franco, our gold producer, Sean Wingblade, and our producers, Mike Kay, Stephen White, Gail, the youth critic, Bador, Jake Berlin, Anton Putra, Tyler Birch, Patricia Carrillo, Chris Pokernoy, Shira Potato, Molly Damon. Then I know Beth Harris, is that her name?
Yes, it is.
Who is Kristen's mom, and also Ferris Muthana joined as a producer. So welcome to our new patrons. Sorry, with the week off, we really didn't update any of our thumbnails, but we'll get to that before tomorrow.
Yeah, look, we took a week off. We needed a break, and that meant not working for some capacity. I was still streaming almost every night on different channels, as it turns out. But
we made look at this. Buck said he gave a like from all 5 of his YouTube accounts. Be like Buck, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already.
And
but look,
real
go
quick,
ahead.
We already got a Streamlabs donation.
Oh boy.
Hey, this is a $15 donation from one Mr. Mike K, who said, "Welcome back, guys. Hope you all had a nice week off." So, Mike,
thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. You're the best.
And I'm going to be on recording Mike's podcast tomorrow.
You
animation.
Talking about all about some upcoming movies and stuff, right?
Well, animation.
Animation in general. I love it.
So, finally, before we introduce our incredible panel of guests, March 24th, which is just a couple weeks away, is the 1-year anniversary of this channel. If you follow us on Twitter, you will see that we're planning a big live show for that day where we're going to get drunk. And I don't know what else. Normally that would be a Suddenly Soundtrack night, but I think we're taking it off. No Suddenly Soundtrack, just to celebrate the year in Pajukin. Hopefully we'll have a huge array of guests popping in and out. I'm hoping to get as many people as we can. I'd love the POV crew to come hang with us. Just everyone in the space who's been, helpful to us. And brothers in arms traversing this space over the last year. And speaking, I need a haircut, Reef.
I was going to say, your hair looks great tonight. Personally,
nothing much else I can do with it. It sort of is it's a lot. Speaking of POV, let's bring in our first guest, Jake Berlin.
Hi, Jake.
What's up, Jake?
Buddy? Not a whole lot. Glad to be back. Finally, I know I've tried to get on the past couple weekends, but it's been busy for me. I'm excited for this one specifically. So,
Awesome.
Really
we also have Eric Muller joining us, who's been on a bunch of these. What's up, Eric?
Nothing much. How are you fine gentlemen doing?
We're good,
Glad
man.
to hear that your beard is still intact and that photo you sent was just using the filter.
I scared a lot of people with that picture.
You looked like an infant.
It's funny because Maxwell recently was like, PJ, would you shave your little facial hair you have? And I'm like, no, because that is exactly why I look like an infant and I don't want to do that again.
Yeah, I would look. Yeah, I don't want to look like a man baby. I'm a man, damn it.
We have another guest who is appearing in rare form today. Normally he is Black Dwayne, but today apparently he's White Dwayne.
Look, I just decided to lean into the joke and just get it out of the way now. Yes, it's not gray vision, it's white vision.
But do you have all Dwayne's memories? I mean, that's the real question.
I don't know. May I?
By the end of the episode, hopefully.
Reefism would like you to know, Jake, that he likes your Mad Max poster, by the way.
Best poster I have.
Well, look, we got a lot to talk about because last night, yesterday, whatever it is, time's just a construct. Marvel and Disney Plus dropped the series finale of WandaVision on us like a lead balloon, and they were a little smart. They tried to get ahead of the server crashing by putting it out about 15 minutes early, hoping it would stagger people coming on, which didn't really help. I know a lot of people still ran into the issue, but there is so much to talk about with this, and the this last episode was pretty much, I think, what people were kind of thinking it would be, like the big third act fight scene culmination of a Marvel movie, but mixed with all the dangling emotional threads, if you will, that the show had set up. And for me, it was kind of a brilliant mix of everything that we had seen before, capping in a kind of bigger MCU fashion, and just kind of coming to the appropriate head that it needed to. Starting over with Dwayne, what were your thoughts, my friend?
I think everyone has known that this show started a little shaky for me. But I think that this has by far surpassed anything Marvel has done with their singular hero content so far, whether that's movies, their one shots, anything that they put out for any singular hero. Is that
Dan.
Han _some_ Dan?
Yes, it is.
That sounds terrible. Like I don't know who decided on that name. It doesn't sound like the word handsome should be split up. Sorry, are we still singing the praises of how goddamn good this finale was?
We just started, and you interrupted Dwayne's great
White
soliloquy.
How dare you?
How dare you interrupt White Dwayne?
Yes, give me my white privilege, goddammit.
I have plenty to spare. Here you go.
Take it.
Take it.
We're gonna spirit bomb this. It's all good.
Yes.
But this is by far the best character work and development that they've done for any of their heroes, like in a project devoted to them. And I've seen a lot of people talking about how, well, it's because we got so much more time with Wanda. And I would really, really, really like to stop that as a discussion point, because we got, what is it? 7 movies with Tony. We got 6 movies with Cap. Like we have just now gotten the same amount of time devoted to Wanda that we have gotten devoted to every other Avenger.
Yep.
Minus Vision and Hawkeye, really. Like, we have gotten the same amount of time finally devoted to Wanda. And now we finally have a fully developed, well-rounded character for us to all latch onto, and I think has become everyone's emotional anchor for the MCU.
Mm-hmm. No, I couldn't agree more. And what's so interesting is it ended up being a brilliant origin for the Scarlet Witch, which they couldn't use as a term until the Fox merger happened. So in a lot of ways, introducing Wanda as Wanda and then letting it build to doing this was almost the best thing they could do. You couldn't get away from the fact that you couldn't use Scarlet Witch until now. Going over to Jake, what were your thoughts on the finale before we deep dive?
Very similar. I do think that this is some of the best MCU storytelling period that they've done. The character development was incredible. I'm also a very, very prominent Scarlet Witch fan from the comic books. I've read a lot of her stories from, when I was younger, and to finally be able to see them adapt these kinds of stories for this character and go into like what magic means to the MCU and like all these different corners that I never expected to see. And so it was, maybe a little bit of a nostalgia factor for me. But it's just, I think that a lot of it has to come down with how it was approached. And it really came from the performances. And I think that what Elizabeth Olsen has done may be the best I've ever seen an MCU person do, period, with a character. And all the 23 movies we got, we might have just saw the best performance, period, out of all of them with a character. And then you add on Paul Bettany and what he does with Vision as well. And then you add, what Catherine Hahn did with Agatha. And it's just like, it's this big, beautiful ball of weirdness that came out so perfectly. And the finale finished beautifully. I thought it was a perfect wrap up, but also a perfect blend into what's going to happen next.
Sorry, I was distracted because you said ball.
I mean,
speaking of Maxwell,
he could have said boner.
Well, we'll get to that. The
What
finale. So the finale was satisfying and very good to me on the element that I needed it to be, and that's the emotional element. I'll be honest, the whiz-bang action stuff left me whelmed. It was fine. I understand that we needed it. I understand it was fun to have all the different pieces, Agatha, Wanda, Vision, White Vision, Hayward, Darcy, Jimmy Woo, Monica, all coming to a head in the center of town. I like action scenes when they're done well. I thought this was perfunctory and clearly operating on a television budget, which is fine. Again, it was fine. But when it really started to kick into gear for me was the Ship of Theseus scene, which we'll get into, and then the last half of the episode where they really, to me, nailed the emotional fallout of everything Wanda's been doing, the repercussions and the impact her choices have had on the other humans in Westview, and the capper of her relationship with Vision for now. So in those regards, I found it particularly beautiful and resonant. And I think what Jake and Dwayne both said is true. When you look at the entire MCU thus far, there's been a lot of great movies. I love many of them. And there's been a lot of great characters and performances. But what they've done here with Wanda and Vision, I think to a strong extent too. I mean, I think the show really is Wanda's story. And like you said, an origin for Scarlet Witch. But it is a two-hander. You couldn't have the show without Vision and what Paul Bettany did. But the way they dove into this character, the way Lizzie Olsen, I call her Lizzie, we're friends, Lizzie Olsen performed it, the way it was meditation on grief and how, if you really break it down, the different episodes and beats of the season can represent the different stages of grief, was really smart, thoughtful storytelling. And I think because of the television format, they were able to make these choices that I don't think they would have felt comfortable doing in a movie. They could make a bigger swing here. It started out more surreal and strange, building a mystery. I will, Diego, I will. I believe she spells it Lizzie, though. Just want to get that on note.
And building a mystery a la Sarah McLachlan.
Sure. It was just, and to me, like I said, it ended on a very emotionally satisfying note. The other sort of elephant in the room is all of the speculating that occurred and the small sect of people who are upset that certain things that were speculated or theorized about didn't come to pass.
Yeah.
I am almost...
You going to talk about that now?
We can later. I was still trying to talk... I think it's a blessing and refreshing that the show is exactly what it was always told us it was going to be. Yeah. It told its own story on its own terms, and didn't fall victim to Iron Man 2 syndrome, which could have happened had certain other choices been made. We could dive deeper into that later. But I tweeted after I watched it, it's nice when something turns out to be exactly what it told you it was. Mm-hmm. And that was the case here. There was no really bips and bobs that took time away from focusing on Wanda and Vision, which if you had introduced other characters or had too many cameos, it could have really devalued the work they put into her character, and that didn't come to pass. So.
All right, and going down to Eric, the ship of Eric, in fact, what were your thoughts?
Well, because if I'm here, if you build me over there, am I still Eric? But I mean, I'm not gonna waste everyone's time. I mean, Dwayne. Okay, well, Jake,
it was good to see you. Well, he said he didn't want to waste our time.
Get to the heart of everything. No, but everything else has been. A lot of my thoughts have already been echoed. But what I want to get down to is the fact that they were able to tell a complete story from episode 1 to episode 9, and I appreciated that. That they didn't have the Iron Man 2 or the Age of Ultron syndrome where they're trying to do too much. They let them Kevin Feige let the writers let them create their story, see the vision throughout, pun intended, and then you still get those two mid-credit scenes to help set up the MCU, the greater MCU universe, but they were still able to tell this emotional story about a woman dealing with the grief of losing the love of her life.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Dan,
I was going to say, Eric, I hadn't even thought about that till you brought it up with the post-credit scene, because we've been in a world for so long where you're looking at 10, 12 years of this universe building, and this is the first time we're getting a series that's directly connected to the MCU. And I find it interesting that you brought up a great point. Like, there's going to be, I watched like half of Age of Ultron before this finale, and I don't know if they purposely did it, but there's even, you can see threads and you can see seeds being planted in that of WandaVision, and you can go as far back as seeing it there. And I think it's interesting that everyone here and then everyone collectively online started doing all this speculating. Well, is this character going to be in there? Is that character going to be in there? And like you just pointed out, like, it wasn't necessarily everything was important in every movie as you were watching it, but definitely those after credit scenes, and the one we've kind of seen throughout this series and then going on to other movies, it's exactly how it was built previously. Like, all the movies, they directly tied in, but everything still stood on its own, which is, I think, where the weaker parts of the MCU were. But even that has been retconned to a degree with Endgame and Infinity War, like definitely bringing the lower canon and kind of rising it up. So it's super interesting to see that WandaVision not only made that great self-contained story about grief and about loss and just how poetic it was at times, but they still planted all those seeds in there. You can clearly see where we're going from here. And I mean, as far as Max was saying with like the speculation, I think it was a lot of fun. And I think the people who are annoyed by that, I think I've done this before myself. I built up those expectations in my head, and then when something doesn't come to it, I'm frustrated. But then I'm the one who built those expectations, and I'm the one who's becoming frustrated, having nothing to do with the creative endeavor that I just like imbibed. So
it was a key part of some of the stuff we talked about last week too, because before we went into the finale, Dwayne and Dan, Eric, and all of us had this conversation about, remember to put aside the shit that you want. Like, we're having fun theorizing because we're all pretty still, like, we're steeped in the comics. We know the lore. We know these worlds. Things can happen, but the show may not go that way, and that's okay. Let's accept the show. You don't have to like it, but accept the show on its own terms, like the story it's trying to tell, not the story you wanted it to tell.
Yes,
and that's
correct.
So important, and it was a conversation being had literally all.
I am, since I guess we're going here, I'm perfectly fine with people being disappointed in what they got.
Sure.
My real annoyance is people being disappointed in what they didn't get. And it's not the creator's fault that you didn't get, X character brought into the show. It's not that, because it didn't fit their story. Maybe they have a plan for that character further down in the MCU, so they can't use them in this particular story. Like, because there are parts of this show that did disappoint me, but I was disappointed in what I got.
Right, not what you didn't get.
It's not because, hey, my theory didn't come true. It's no, I saw the character and was disappointed in what happened with particularly Agatha's character. Really disappointed me. But I think that they actually made a move in the end that is kind of going to move her in the direction that I wanted to see her go in. And that was with, I agree, Wanda's line, I know where you'll be.
Yeah.
I think we could start diving a little deeper. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the traditional dichotomies between Agatha and Scarlet Witch is that Agatha's is her mentor, more so than a villain. And I think that's what we'll see. I think whether it be in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, or I could almost see, because this show has been so beloved and popular, Feige deciding to do a Wanda movie. which I would love. Any opportunity for a woman to be the actual titular lead in an MCU movie is good. We're only just now getting the first one in a couple weeks, assuming they don't move it with Black Widow. Oh, I guess Captain Marvel. Yeah, forgive me. Is good, but I want to play devil's advocate briefly. Yeah, Marcus, we need to go deeper. Correct. I agree with everything everyone is saying on be careful with speculation. Don't be disappointed that what you thought might come doesn't come, and critique things in their own context. But for the purposes of this show, the creative team did fuck with us intentionally a little bit.
Totally.
The casting of Evan Peters was deliberately meant to provoke. Some of the things that Elizabeth Olsen and particularly Paul Bettany said in interviews about, an actor I've been dying, those things are cheeky and fun. And I personally loved it, particularly Paul Bettany, it being the actor he couldn't wait to work against himself. Like, bravo. I feel like that's the kind of shit I would try to pull.
I have a question specifically about that, Max. Do you think that was literally a producer note, or do you think that was Paul just being cheeky on his own?
Oh no, that was Paul.
That was cheeky on his own.
I guarantee Feige was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Like,
because I think he said right before he dropped that nugget, he was like,
very correct.
How do I say this without getting in trouble? I think it was his exact quote, and then he said that.
So, to a certain point, I understand when these are the things you're hearing from the cast. When they put Evan Peters in the show as Pietro, that you're going to be rabble-roused a little bit. But that, I think, was kind of exciting. And for what it's worth, I don't think we're done with Evan Peters in the MCU.
Matt Shackman said as much in an interview too.
And I think the way they used him was delightful and great. His main episode, the Halloween episode, I thought he was perfect. And the reveal,
boner,
that his name is Ralph Boner. He's the mysterious Ralph we've heard about this whole time. Is perfect and hilarious. Someone tweeted the other day, Trevor Slattery walked so Ralph Boner could run.
That was Ryan Nilsson.
Yeah, it was Ryan Nilsson. You're right, exactly. Which is spot on. And there's still an opportunity to have him be someone else or be more in the MCU. I don't think we're done with him. But in the context of WandaVision, I thought it was like a cheeky and delightful reveal. And some people are like, you wasted Evan Peters, blah, blah, blah. No, because he was in half the show. His main episode, the Halloween episode, he was fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
That might actually be my favorite or second favorite episode of the series. Probably episode 8 is the other one because that was just devastating. But, it was just fun to have him. And it played right in with the whimsical tone of the television show. I don't think they wasted him at all. I don't understand that argument. And people are like, oh, you get Evan Peters just for a boner joke? Look, if you can elegantly weave in a boner joke into your show, please, by all means.
Yes.
Yeah. And to all of our point, real quick, we got another stream left. It kind of fits into everything we're talking about. This one from Brandon Buck, who said, "Love the show. I had thought of the theory. I had a thought on theories that didn't happen. Was I bummed? Yes. Am I mad it didn't pan out? Not at all. That was not my story to tell, so that's fine. Shout out to Jack Schaefer and Matt Shackman."
Yes, for seriously. Yes. Also, before we get too far away, do you think this is just an old headshot?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I couldn't find a picture with it saying the name, and I didn't want to go and take my own screenshot. So that was the best I could do.
Correct. That's what we're here for, Brandy.
Well, also just remember with Quicksilver, I mean, he likes his little joke. So obviously a character like him would make a boner joke. So
yeah, it felt right.
His reaction was genuine. I was like, that's clever. If you're playing the long game. Too.
Like they did such a great job of letting him be a mix of the Aaron Taylor Johnson version of the character, but also being the Pietro from the Fox movies, so that there was a little bit of, could it be, could it not be? Like there was enough of the way he played it, and that was fun. And it wasn't fixed at all. Got to spend time with the Quicksilver character again, whether or not it was Aaron Taylor Johnson, even if it was mind controlled.
Right. I have two little points I want to bring up before we talk about everything else that were mild disappointments for me. The first is just a lingering thing, and it's who was Jimmy Woo's witness protection person that's missing. That to me felt like an oversight from a writing standpoint. Like the one thing I was hoping would be resolved that wasn't, which leads me to believe it could be Ralph Boner. I don't know.
I don't think so because they saw him before the broadcast cut out.
Yeah, but maybe he was not revealing who it was because of the witness protection part. I don't know. I just thought I was thinking we would see who that was in the finale, like Jimmy going up to him like, I found you, or her. Could have been Dot. I don't know. And that didn't happen. So I don't know if they shot it and it didn't make it. I don't know. That was the only like point of writing that felt lost to me. The other point is, I think to a certain point, and I understand fully the show is called WandaVision, not WandaVision, Monica, Jimmy, Darcy. The finale did a mild disservice to the supporting characters, especially Monica, because you built up this really strong Black woman lead who got superpowers, and her like big finale showdown moment was sort of meh. And I think they could have explored her a little richer. I also recognize they're setting her up for future things, which they do in the post credits. But I still feel like her like final moment being having to protect these kids who showed that they could protect themselves after all that buildup was not the best choice is from an optics standpoint.
I will actually kind of disagree with you because I think it was actually perfect because what she did is, yes, the kids can protect themselves, but she threw herself in the path of bullets without knowing that she had powers.
Sure.
Which
Her
I think
powers
is
kicked in when she did that.
I think it's the most significant point that they made about her character and where we can expect her as a hero to go forward is it kind of established her as that was her I can do this all day moment, was that she is willing to put herself in harm's way,
or her jump on the grenade moment.
Yes. Like she knows that she is going to jump in and do what she can do, whether she knows she's going to make it out okay or not.
And a little bit to build on what finish your thought. I want to build on that.
I was just going to say, and I think that that's so important because I think that we are looking at the future leader of the Avengers.
Which I would definitely agree with. And that's where I was going to go with just on both of those points, saying to you too, Max, is that I think it was well done for what they were doing. And I think she will be second build hands down in Captain Marvel too. I think it'll be Captain Marvel and then her. And we're really going to see either massive training montages, seeing what she's going to do.
I also think she'll be first build in the Secret Wars Disney Plus.
Sure.
I agree.
Okay. And then I also think, speaking of that, is it heavily implied, and maybe I'm the only one who, I'm sure I'm not the only one who thought this, but that after credit scene that she's in, are they implying that Fury wants her up?
Yep, 100%.
They are heavily implying that, but I also want to remind people that there is another friend of her mother that is on Earth.
Yep.
Yeah.
And has been impersonating Nick Fury.
Sure.
Good. Yeah.
Sorry. I was going to say to all of that point, where we ended Far From Home was that Talos was still on Earth and Fury was hanging out with the rest. So there's definitely going to be a pool because the two people confirmed right now for Secret Wars are Fury and Talos.
So we're talking about the first mid-credit scene here where Monica is asked to go to the theater for debriefing and the FBI agent reveals herself to be a Skrull, which we see here on this photo. And look, this is the one difficult thing about this type of storytelling, this type of universe building storytelling. You try to focus on the main characters of your piece, and then you have other characters who you're going to use in other things. And how do you both satisfy them in the context of this piece while also knowing that they're going to be in other things where they may take more of a major role? It's a challenge.
Max, I think this, especially what we got here, this was a little bit like an almost more expanded, like when we saw Hawkeye and Thor, or when you're seeing
that was like a mind. Yeah, no, this was definitely.
It's just they're finding better ways to introduce characters, and like you said previously, this wasn't her show, and like I think I think they gave her enough to do to be satisfactory, but I can also understand you being like, I wanted more. But I also think since we started the episode with like, here comes the third act, this is what's happening, because the last 10, 15 minutes are all dedicated to that emotional denouement coming down. Like, I think, and like you said, and what you said in your recap as well is like, the action was whelming. And I'm like, after Endgame, everything's going to feel whelming for a while. Like that release is just next level, next level, like 10 levels away. So now we're back to like regular MCU. And it's kind of like, I have to learn to appreciate this again.
I don't know. I mean, the argument I would make, and this might make me a minority, is that for the most part, the MCU doesn't have the best action ever, barring Winter Soldier here and there. I think they're competent action scenes for the most part. Certainly from like a thrilling standpoint, the portal sequence in Endgame is as rousing as it gets. But when it came time for the actual action beats, it's sort of like, well, this is not, John Wick or the Raid level action choreography or geography or framing. Really, the only MCU movie that has action that I would call legitimately great action scenes is The Winter Soldier.
And I think that's the part of that, because Winter Soldier is a clear pivot. But I think what you're asking for there, not asking for, but like they're not prioritizing it. Like their action scenes are not high on the list. It's like their storytelling is high on the list. Their character development is high on the list. Like, and they're weaving like a huge universe is high on the list. I think action is one of those things people expect, but nobody goes like, I'll rewatch, like you said, the portal scene and that last hour of Endgame. I'll rewatch that all day long. But like, I don't think people are going back to be like, or I'll go back to like the airport scene in Civil War. But there's a handful of scenes that you can tell they're like, we have to focus on this for this reason. Whereas it felt like this, you're going to see Vision and White Vision, and you're going to see Agatha and Scarlet Witch. And they knew that was going to happen. And then they probably worked backwards from it.
Yeah.
I also think that this series can kind of give us a idea of what to expect in Falcon and Winter Soldier and Loki and even Secret Invasion. And what I mean by that is not what to expect as far as the story is concerned, but that these shows are going to focus on moving the characters forward and introducing some newer characters, lesser known characters to the broader audience. And I think that the movies are going to start being used to move the universe forward. We're going to get a lot less character development in the films, and we're going to get, I think, a lot more of these character series, and character development is going to be done in the series, and universe development will be done in I don't think we will see any major, like everyone was like, oh, we're going to get the X-Men. No, they're going to save that for a movie.
Yeah.
We're going to get Reed Richards. Nope. They're going to save that for a movie, because those are universe moving things. Yeah. They want max eyes, pun not intended. They want max eyes on those.
I think to your point,
that drives me crazy not knowing how many people actually watch this show. I'm fascinated with the ratings. I studied TV in grad school, and the fact that these streamers don't release their ratings data, and there are services that try to use social media impressions and stuff to get an idea. We have no idea. I'm just dying to know, because their servers are crashing. As far as I know, that's never happened with Netflix, with the drop of a new show. So is that because there are so many people going to watch it? Because Disney Plus is only a year-old service and their server farms aren't as beefed up as they need to be? I don't know. But how many people are watching this? 15 million people, like on par with NCIS? Or are we talking 30 or 40 million people on par with like TV back in the 90s when, ratings were astronomical? I don't know.
I think it's a combination of it's a combination of the servers not being beefed up enough, but also their expansion that they've done in the last year.
Yeah.
And people have drastically underestimated that. They're like, oh man, WandaVision, I can't watch it when I want to. It's like, do you not realize in the past like month, Hotstar and Hotstar Plus and all these like different variations of Disney Plus have launched in I think it's like 15
countries
to
across
20
the world,
new
yeah.
markets. Like
Right.
there is so much more load on their servers in the past month than they probably ever imagined. And it's like you want the data on WandaVision. I want the data on Mulan. I want to know how many people bought it.
Well, I'm going to
Because
know how many
so
people
many-
are buying Raya this weekend.
Well, my big thing is when they released their subscriber numbers on Investor Day, and there have been reports, but there's no confirmed number on how many people bought Mulan. But the reports are saying it was around 30% of subscribers. That means Mulan made Disney almost $1 billion.
Right.
Pure
and,
profit. Pure profit.
Pure
right,
profit.
And all 30 of those PVOD dollars go directly to Disney. They are not
Yeah.
sharing those with the the theater.
Mhm.
So this is way, way, way off the deep end from WandaVision, but as long as we're talking about it. So Raya this weekend is going to open to less box office than Tom and Jerry did last weekend. There's a couple interesting notes about this. The first is that Cinemark, which is the third biggest theater chain in the country, did not play the movie because they would not make a deal with Disney on how much profit share Disney wanted on this movie. The second is, although you have to pay for Raya on Disney Plus versus Tom and Jerry, which is free on HBO Max, far, 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 far more people have Disney Plus than have HBO Max.
Curious.
But let's talk about the episode. Let's talk about
back to the
real
episode.
quick. I do want to I wanted to say something to Dwayne's point though on the universe stuff. I think that stuff like Secret Wars 2 will be the one time where the shows, because it's a very centralized version of pushing the universe forward. But I think Dwayne's right. I think most of these shows are going to be very character centric, not universe centric. But stuff like Secret Wars will be kind of like The Defenders was, if you will, for the Netflix shows, where there will be like stepping stones on the TV side where they can push other things forward for the next thing. But I think
I also think they have an opportunity to see which characters were popular. So they may not have realized how beloved Jimmy Woo would be after WandaVision. Really easy to put him in Secret Wars or She-Hulk.
I believe he's already been confirmed for Quantumania.
Yeah, which makes sense. I mean, he started in the Ant-Man. I'm just good stuff. I'm excited for the future of the MCU.
Oh yeah.
You know, I think with Tony dying, sorry if you haven't seen Endgame, what are you doing here? With the resolution to Cap story, there was some question about, where do we go from here? Which reminds me of the song from the Buffy musical. Where do we go from here?
If we want to talk, where do we go from here? In 2 weeks, we're going to be stepping into Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
And speaking about the resolution, and this is the one thing that is a theory, but I will be truly disappointed if this does not happen. And it's. I think we all know Sam is not going to have the shield at the beginning of Falcon and Winter Soldier.
It's Wyatt Russell.
Yep.
And if they do not dive into the racial reasons why Sam is not given the shield, I will be severely disappointed in this series. Because
I sort of feel like
it's a very big point in the comics that they said Sam Wilson cannot be the representation of America because he's not white. And I think that needs to be touched upon in this show. And if it's not, I will be disappointed in the show.
The vibe I'm getting from Wyatt Russell's character is Homelander from The Boys.
Yes. I remember when I saw the picture.
He's very similar to the character.
When I saw the picture, I was like, man, I would feel really bad for this actor because he just looks like he says the N-word.
100%. I couldn't agree. I saw it and I was like, this guy's racist.
Wow.
So,
He's clearly one of them good old boys.
I agree with you. I am hopeful that they're going to explore that. And I think with Feige being in control, with Ike Perlmutter gone, that they will not be hesitant to do so. I hope.
I mean, we'll see. Just because, like, you look at the starting with like Winter Soldier pivoting, and then starting with Civil War, and them getting into consequences. The WandaVision tying it all back together is the first time we're really seeing characters being emotionally devastated. Like things have been hinted at, like with Tony Stark and the PTSD and Iron Man 3. Like there have been things,
which is why I love that movie so much, among other reasons.
But they haven't really explored, because at the end of the day, Tony Stark's a guy. He's a guy with $1 billion or like $1 trillion, and that's
probably a little more than that.
That's more or less his superpower. Versus Wanda, who is like next level, where you haven't even seen the depths of her powers. We kind of got a glimpse of it here. So you really went into grief. Now to see if Falcon and Winter Soldier is going to go into another realm as far as tackling racism and how that pertains to comics, I'm really interested to see that as well, because I didn't know that storyline. So it's going to be interesting to see like how deep, whether or not, like, Dwayne, would you be satisfied if there was like a reference or a nod to it and they were aware of it, but like they don't directly address it? Or do you want like, no, this is where it's from the comics and this is like, it has to be spoken essentially?
I think it needs to be a very, it doesn't need to be like a,
hit
no,
you over the
can't
head.
have the, it doesn't need to be like a, no, you can't have the shield, boy. Like it doesn't need to be one of those, but like I think that it like it could be as simple as a conversation with Bucky, and Bucky's like, I don't understand why they won't let you have the shield, and he's like,
I like that.
I know why they won't let me have the shield. I see it in the mirror every day why they won't let me have the shield. Like, so that would be enough, but I think that it needs to be very apparent. The reason that he's not given the shield is because he is a black man in America.
We'll know how it all goes when Fox News covers it. So I mean,
I'll be surprised if they don't deal with it in some way, because it seems deliberate to me that when we last saw Sam, Cap handed him the shield, and now in his TV show he doesn't have it at the start. It seems deliberate.
I'm also
and that the person who does have it is a white boy.
And I'm also and again, this is it's a theory. I won't be super disappointed if it doesn't happen, but I am hoping that we do get a introduction to Patriot in this show, who eventually becomes not the replacement for Captain America, but he becomes like the new Captain America-esque character, and he's Sam's like sidekick for a while.
They're going to set him up the Young Avenger.
Yeah, because if we're moving towards Young Avengers,
they're going to set him up.
We need to have a Patriot. Like, and I'm hoping that he doesn't need to be a huge role, but even if it's just you hear like Sam like saves a kid and it's the same name as the kid who eventually becomes Patriot, like that would be enough for me.
Yeah.
But like a nod to that character eventually coming to fruition, I would love it.
All of this is great. I'm just most excited to see Aaron Kellyman on screen again, honestly.
I'm also very excited to finally get God damn it, Zemo in the full purple fucking
Daniel Bruhl.
mask.
Did you guys
hear? So bad.
Did you guys hear that? And I know we're supposed to be talking about WandaVision, but real quick,
Have you watched it before, Jake?
This is the Pajukin.
did you guys hear why he has the purple mask in the MCU?
No.
Is this like from the comic, or is this?
This is like a thing floating around that he wears it because the Avengers are terrified of Thanos.
Oh, that's kind of dope, actually.
That would make sense,
and that's
too.
Why he has it now.
That would make sense as far as
That
this is,
it would be an interesting.
Forgive my ignorance. This is Daniel Bruhl, correct?
Yeah.
Yes. And I am. There's a line that he says in the trailer that I'm actually kind of wondering if we're going to have this theme running throughout the next arc of the MCU, because he says, I think it's superheroes cannot be allowed to exist.
Mm-hmm.
And
something in that line. Yeah.
It's very reminiscent of who I think the overarching antagonist for Multiverse of Madness is going to be said at the end of Doctor Strange. Too many sorcerers. I think that we're going to get a very overarching theme in the next stretch of the MCU of these superhuman people cannot be allowed to exist.
So let's use that as a great way to pivot back to Wanda.
I was going to say, all I know is we're not having a Falcon and Winter Soldier prep show because we just did it.
I wanted to touch on.
I'm always down for a prep show.
Let's Jake, what were you thinking?
Well, so I had some.
I think only Dwayne got that joke.
About the mid-credits.
I got.
So I think it's good to keep in mind with the mid-credit scene of WandaVision and Far From Home that WandaVision takes place 3 weeks after Endgame. Far From Home is a handful of months.
Right.
So I'm already
Far From Home is after WandaVision?
Yes.
Yes. So I'm already thinking that when we see Monica Rambeau next, she's going to be on that ship with Nick Fury and she's going to be full-fledged into her powers already. Because it's months in advance. And I think that she's already going to be. I think that she'll be Spectrum, personally, not Proton. I think she'll be Spectrum. And I really like what Dwayne said about her being like the leader of the Avengers because it kind of we're getting this idea that Captain Marvel is being saved for space, and Carol, like, she's going to go out and like do everything with like the universe, and then you need a Captain Marvel like, which Monica is very similar on Earth with Sword. And maybe she's like that bridge gap between the two of them. But it's going to be interesting because it's months in advance. And like, is she already the full-fledged character? Is she still learning? Also, just a quick, I think that agent she talked to, the Skrull, is Talos's daughter.
That's a great point. I also think. I
can see that.
To what you're saying, what's interesting about her being the leader of the Avengers is that there's also some bad blood, it feels like, between her and Carol. And so for this idea that she and Carol kind of finally put stuff aside and she is able to do for the Earth what Carol didn't, in her opinion, is like a very interesting character arc for her to take that I think is something worth exploring.
And as far as a little bit of the merging of those characters, like you were saying, she seems to be a nice balance between Captain Marvel and Captain America, to where it's like she came up through the ranks and then she got her powers. And so she really knows the system. She knows when to go with it, when to buck it. And then she also has to buck the system. I don't know. I just made it up. But then she also has those connections as well.
She knows when to tell her boss, hey, don't shoot at kids.
Who shooting poorly at kids, by the way. Can we talk about that for a second? Because like what? Yeah, they're tiny children.
He's also exhibited, I'd argue, exhibited as much inner strength as any MCU hero.
I got that when she gets her powers, the literal scene where she's going through the barrier. Incredible. I'm getting weepy because it's such a great visual representation of somebody dealing with grief, and then she hears Carol Danvers' voice and pulls it all together and goes like, love it.
So there are two things I really want to touch on. So the first is the two visions and the ship of Theseus scene. As we saw at the end of last week, Hayward has successfully used some of Wanda's power to reanimate Vision, his corpse, because we found out that Wanda never got Vision's corpse, that Hayward still had it. So there are two visions, and they fight, and in the sky, and they're punching and they're kicking. And I love that the resolution of their fight was a deep philosophical conversation about the ship of Theseus. And I thought Paul Bettany's performance in this scene, much to his credit about wanting to work with this actor since he was young, just the subtle differences he employed for each version of Vision was so on point. Because, sorry, I'm sure you could hear the dog barking. His work as White Vision was a lot more akin to when we first met Vision in Age of Ultron. And as Vision traversed the MCU leading up to WandaVision, we saw him become more human.
And I will say, specifically to that point, and since I just watched it a couple days ago, he is much more childlike in Age of Ultron. He's much more curious. Sure. He's very open. Whereas I like what he did with White Vision, to where it's like it's like a dog on a leash, to where it's like he's programmed differently.
I was just the cadence with which he's speaking reminded me. But let's talk about the ship of Theseus. So I have two things here. So if the ship of Theseus was entirely replaced piece by piece, and if the original planks were gathered up after they were replaced and used to build a second ship, which ship is the original ship of Theseus? And then we have this graph here, which is a nice visual representation of the philosophical problem. And I think it's a really interesting idea to bring up when discussing the nature of identity. Obviously, the ship of Theseus, as it pertains directly to itself, is about an inanimate object. But when discussing the notion of identity, what makes us who we are, and who is the original version? I think there's an argument for both ways, and I think both visions were vision. But in so much as retraining White Vision from his programming, he said, "What is your directive?" to destroy Vision. By getting him to realize that he is also Vision, he's not going to destroy himself, so he flies off into the sky, and I heavily assume we'll see White Vision again.
And I like how they specifically say, both of them say, like, we're like, they both say at different points, I'm Vision, and then they said both are and neither are, which is just like a nice round part of that conversation and of that, metaphysical psychological thought experiment, because it's one of those things where it's like, it's just supposed to be discussed. There's no right or wrong answer.
No.
But as soon as he lets Wanda's vision like into his brain and be like, oh, there's more here, they're keeping things from me, I love that the conclusion of this show, like we're talked about the action a little bit, but I like that it's not, I feel like it needed to, between those two, they could have gone on like that forever. It needed to end with a discussion as opposed to fighting.
Which I thought was beautiful and one of my favorite things in this episode, and my favorite overall, like, two people battling resolutions in something in a while.
Yeah, and I think one of the most like nuanced parts of that entire exchange was the revelation that no matter which vision you view as the vision, there is one thing that they both have in common. And it's the one reason that Wanda did not want Sword to have Vision's body, was the one thing that he did not want to be a weapon to be controlled.
Yep.
And once he realized, even White Vision, once he realized that's what was going on, he was like,
peace.
Nope. We're not doing that.
See them here fighting. It's interesting because their use of the ship of Theseus in this context reminded me a bit of the way we use the Turing test. In other things, the Turing test was developed by Alan Turing, the great code breaker of World War II. He was a gay gentleman, arguably one of the fathers of modern computing, and he designed this test basically to determine if a piece of artificial intelligence or a computer has humanity. And I think that's always been one of the things that Vision has been used to explore, and probably most so in this. Where is the line between him just being a robot versus a human? I mean, he has no human material, but at what point does a robot's brain start creating enough empathy and compassion that they are no longer just a robot? And I think they could explore that more with White Vision in his future appearances, which, I think is a foregone conclusion. I don't know. I can't yet understand where we might see him, but I think we will.
I think it'll be interesting to see where his character pops up, just because, theoretically he's clearly not the Vision we've had up to this point, but you can make an argument that he has all the memories. I don't think you can plug and play him. I don't think that's how this is going to work, especially with what Wanda is dealing with on her own. But I think you bring up a great point where it's like, where does he go? Like, what does he show up in? Like, he's clearly not the same character that we've been dealing with for, X number of movies.
It's just Paul Bettany's journey in the MCU. Like, hey, can you come and record some voiceover work?
I know.
In 2008. Now we're going to put you in makeup and you're going to be a superhero. We're gonna kill you. Oh no, we're gonna bring you back, and then we're gonna bring a second one of you back, but then we're gonna kill the first one of you, but then the second one is gonna come back, and then you're gonna have to put on 2 different types of makeup, and they're gonna have to act against each other.
I want to hear the rest of you guys real quick, but specifically about that, I remember reading an interview where he was like, it sucks. He's like, I hate it. I hate being in the makeup. He's like, the one thing that gets me through is thinking about how many other actors would kill to be in his position. Anyway.
And I love how succinctly he put his journey in the MCU. I've been a voice with no body, a body but not human, and now a memory made real. What will I be next? And
that was incredible writing.
And
yes.
and whoever, like, not just in this show, but he's got to have like a personal writer and is like, hey, I'm only allowed to say bangers in the MCU. Like
100%.
Everything that I say has to be like this just heartfelt, like thoughtful, quotable moment. And it's like if it comes out of Vision's mouth, you know that it's gonna be good.
So I want
to the banger clause in his contract. Like, I need to have a banger.
Yeah, it's like Vin Diesel and The Rock. It's like, I can't lose a verbal battle.
Yeah.
I want to just stay on this Vision thread 1 second before we jump over to Wanda and what I was saying about the nature of humanity and AI, and talk about Blade Runner for a second. Obviously, in Blade Runner, the idea of who's a replicant or not. So if you look here, and we see this in the show, Tannhauser Gate is a phrase that is used by Roy Batty, Rutger Hauer's character in Blade Runner, in his famous "Tears in the Rain" speech. That is clearly a deliberate reference.
It is a deliberate reference, and I can tell you why they're able to use it, and it's because Marvel did the comic for Blade Runner.
There you go.
Oh.
So it's actually a double Easter egg.
Yes.
You know, so I think they've used the marquee of the movie theater beautifully throughout the show.
Well.
So one of my favorites was in the Halloween episode, they were playing The Incredibles, which we saw come to pass here. I mean, what is this if not The Incredibles? Like
persevering, yes.
Yeah. But when I saw that on the marquee, and there's one other marquee thing I want to mention. Oz the Great and Powerful was listed on the marquee. And so the other big fight here is between Wanda and Agatha. And when Wanda first thinks Agatha is dead, we see this shot here, which is just Agatha's boots under the house, which is the most clever visual reference to the Wicked Witch of the East from The Wizard of Oz. And I just love the way they're putting this all together.
A little nod to where is she going? Because who's directing Doctor Strange other than Sam Raimi?
See, that's the other thing.
Yeah.
Oz the Great and Powerful is directed by Sam Raimi, who is directing currently, I think they're in production on Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. So the fact that they were able to tie that all together in a way that felt elegant and not obnoxious, bravo to the writers on that, and the set dressers and everything.
So much.
But you bring up a good point. So as we mentioned in our overall recaps, this was an origin story for Wanda, and it was Wanda becoming the Scarlet Witch. And Agatha says some things about what being the Scarlet Witch means that are scary. Chaos magic, destroyer of worlds, more powerful than the Sorcerer Supreme. But putting all that aside for a second, let's just briefly talk about how fucking dope Elizabeth Olsen looks as Scarlet Witch.
Yes.
This might be some of the top cost
any day of the week.
Oh God, choke me. This costuming is so on point.
It might be the best in the entire MCU.
It's damn good. And it might look even better when we next see her with a movie budget versus a TV budget.
And look, can we just also just appreciate the fact that they went for it? Like, they didn't have to. Like, they kind of poked fun at it, right? With her costume being a Sokovian fortune teller and all that stuff. Like, for so long, going all the way back to the OG X-Men, we've seen these movies and stuff kind of poke fun at their comic book counterparts. The deleted scene in the Wolverine that didn't make it in. Like, to see someone who actually actually took a shot and they were like, no, you know what? Fuck it. Like, let's go. Let's try and make it work. And they did. And
I think the MCU, more so than other, especially the X-Men movies, for example, has delved more into relatively comic accurate or heavily comic inspired costuming.
Totally. But it was just cool to see it. You know what I mean?
Oh, but this is definitely one of the more
outlandish.
Outlandish is exactly what. Yeah.
This is the I think this is the most accurate we've gotten that isn't a suit.
Yeah.
Like Spider-Man, that's easy to get accurate. Iron Man, easy to get accurate because
Captain
it's a
America.
Suit.
Yeah.
But ones where you can see the character's whole face and it's like a headdress, like that would look ridiculous for the most part if you had done this in, truly comic book accurate. It would look a little ridiculous.
I think that's something.
But the way that they kind of modernized it and kept the actual design, but said like, hey, if we just minimize it slightly and make it just a little bit smaller than it would normally be, it looks perfect.
The part on her, and I'm touching it, and I know you can't see my finger. The part here on her neck, the sort of pattern there, and then the way it connects to the top piece is so beautiful. And then the headdress, like we were talking about, is like minimalistic enough, but so clear to the comic that the design of it is just impeccable.
And also looks very, very, very similar to someone else's costume. Her father.
I know what you're going with.
It looks very, very similar to her father's costume.
I saw a photo of her in this costume next to Fassbender in Days of Future Past.
Yep.
This looks more similar to Magneto's like costume than her comic book accurate costume. So I think they are very gently planting seeds to make that transition into she is related to Magneto. I'm not going to say daughter because there's 1,000 different ways that they could make her related to Magneto, but I think that they're already starting to plant. They're planting seeds for X-Men. I think what we're going to see in the next,
I was just
3 to 4 years of, I think what we're going to see for the next 3 to 4 years is going to be the impetus for the Sentinels being brought into the MCU. I think that no more sorcerers, no superheroes should be allowed to exist. I think that's where we're going to end up is with Sentinels. I think the White Vision is going to be the foundation upon which the Sentinel program is built. I think we are looking at very, very deliberately and very carefully planted seeds into bringing things from the X-Men universe into the MCU, which will eventually lead to the X-Men being fully brought in. But
which I prefer much more than here's Wolverine.
Right.
Yeah.
Are Sentinels
Absolutely.
made of vibranium or adamantium?
Not traditionally.
They could make it that way. But
there's
before we get too far away from it, I wanted to bring up a point just because you were talking about the costuming, and it was the one thing that Marvel is very good about is organically bringing it as far as character development. Like that's one of the reasons, like with X-Men, it feels a little jankier because it's just kind of like, and they even poke fun at it. They're being meta in the X-Men movies when they do it. But as far as Marvel, there's always some sort of organic path to where all these costumes are coming from and where they're going.
In the Deadpool movies, they just straight up wear the yellow X-Men costumes.
To go off of that, I was going to say that I'm okay if a costume comes from a comic book origin, like if it does look, cheesy or whatever, as long as there's a reason why it's happening. And as far as her headpiece goes, it's because it comes with the title of the Scarlet Witch. She doesn't just put it on to make herself look like a Scarlet Witch. The Scarlet Witch, the embodiment of the forged character, as they say that she is, it comes from the power. And so it comes around her head when she embodies that character. And I'm okay with that. If it was bigger, fine. They gave me a reason as to why it's there. And I'm okay with it. But this version looks incredible.
Which is also super interesting and really feeds into the end credit scene where there are 2 Wandas and you have one Wanda just chilling, having some fucking tea.
Big deal because that's the first time we've ever seen that from a character.
That's actually not true.
No, we've seen Doctor Strange.
Doctor
saying
Strange does it.
Strange does it unconsciously. Wanda was doing it actually conscious.
No, he did it. He did it on purpose. He was using his astral
I
form
know
so that his body could sleep
while he was doing it. Is what I was saying. Wanda's actually walking around.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
She's actually like walking around doing something else. Strange was in his bed unconscious.
To be fair, I think he did show that he could. I think he could do it consciously. We saw it as this is his way to get his 8 hours of sleep while still studying.
Mm.
You know, I think Doctor Strange is capable of doing both.
Or maybe it plays to that whole she's more powerful than the Sorcerer.
But I also think that we're looking at two Wandas and she's created probably a couple more forms.
If we're talking about that scene, the music used in the scene is a riff on the Doctor Strange theme.
Yep. Yes, it is.
Ooh.
And I think it.
And from what I've heard, if we're playing a little inside baseball, Benedict did shoot a scene.
That's what I was about to say. Yep.
Which they decided not to use because originally Doctor Strange was to be coming out like 2 months after WandaVision. And then with COVID delays, that shifted.
Good call. Perfect call.
And it makes sense because the next time we see Doctor Strange, as we're all aware, is Spider-Man. And we all knew that Elizabeth Olsen hadn't shot anything, which is what from her mouth. Now, she could be lying, but Feige even said during the Disney Investor Day that what happens in WandaVision will be seen ramified in Spider-Man and then Doctor Strange. So to cut whatever Benedict had done only makes sense because he hasn't dealt with this yet. But he would have had it been flipped.
But he's also in Spider-Man, right?
Yeah, and he's in Spider-Man and she's not.
Right, so that's a post-credit scene. Whatever he shot for WandaVision, it's probably going to be one of the post-credit scenes in Spider-Man.
Maybe.
It's not a
Or
bad
they'll reshoot it, but similar.
Or as a tease, they put it on Black Widow since it's coming out sooner.
They could, because the post-credit scenes have not always been in
they've always
chronological. They've historically not been in chronological order.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they don't have to tie to the movie that's actually happening.
Yep.
Yeah.
So let's talk about letting go.
Do we have to?
No.
Let it go.
Let me get my record.
So many
All right, great
feelings.
show. Bye, everybody. I don't want to talk
Wrong
about
Disney
it.
property. Sorry.
If we don't talk about it, it didn't happen.
So like the big emotional crux, which is sort of when Vision delivers that beautiful speech that Dwayne so elegantly delivered for us not too long ago. Thank you, Dwayne.
Yeah, thank you, Dwayne.
You're our program.
He's white.
A cheeky. Every show needs a cheeky British gentleman.
Or a white Dwayne.
Was Wanda finally having to let go of Vision
and the kids
and the kids, which I did not expect. And that scene where they're like, "Thanks for being our mom."
Or
that whole scene, or "Thanks for choosing to be my kids."
Thanks for choosing me to be your mom.
Yeah, that's what it was. As she's slowly closing the door, and we don't see the hex come over them, but we know it's going to happen. Oh my God.
And you can see how far they've come as characters because of how they're behaving as parents, and especially Paul Bettany. He doesn't say a lot, but every time the camera's on him, he's about to cry. Like they're doing such a good job of being like, what would a parent do in this situation? They would protect their children. They'd be like, we'll see you in the morning. I'm going to say everything my heart can as succinctly as possible, even though I know you're not going to be there in 20 seconds.
So it was interesting to me that the kids were just a creation of the hex. But if we go back to the final credit scene when Wanda's astral projecting, we hear the kids scream out.
Yeah, we hear Billy, which is a nod because he has her powers.
Yes.
Well, they are little hellspawn, so.
And that's their comic origin. It's going to be a twist, obviously. It's not going to be exact, but it's going to be very interesting to see where that story thread goes.
I have, and it's ties into this moment. I've seen a lot of people complaining that the post-credit scene kind of dilutes the stakes or dilutes Wanda's sacrifice.
No way.
And what I would say to that is, we've talked about how this show has gone through the 5 stages of grief and is like represents those 5 stages. And I think that the post-credit scene is a perfect example of how acceptance is not permanent. You can always move back into depression. You can always move back into anger.
I would say it's bargaining. It's definitely bargaining.
Well, what I mean is that it is, once you reach acceptance, it doesn't mean that you've accepted it eternally.
Forever.
You are going to have days where you go back and you're incredibly sad, and maybe you have to work through those stages again, or maybe and also the path of the 5 stages is not linear as well. Like you can jump around and move back and forth. So you can reach acceptance before you start to bargain, and then you have to go back to acceptance, and then you get angry, and then there's no, Dan and myself both in the past year have dealt with this. Both of us losing our fathers, and I can tell you from personal experience.
Oh God, yeah.
It's not linear, it does not last forever.
There was a song that I just heard for the first time. I think it was actually, we talked about this a little bit in a different chat. Mike K was recommending a band called Spanish Love Songs, and I'm listening to them for the first time. And there was one song I listened to like 4 times in a row because it just kept reminding me of my dad. And it's like I'm feeling those emotions washing over me, like not new, but definitely like familiar feelings again of like just loss and what you're going through for all that. So yeah, you're totally right, where it's like you can hop around wherever.
And it was talking about, I just want to say that this comment from Mike K is really interesting. The subtitle of Doctor Strange 2 is Multiverse of Madness, which as an acronym is MOM. I don't know if that's deliberate or not, or pertinent, but it's certainly interesting.
So where does everybody think that that's headed? Like, how do you think she's involved in this movie? Because I have a theory, but
let's hear it. I want to hear it.
I actually think she is going to play less of a large role than I think we really want. I think Multiverse of Madness is actually going to be the jumping point as or I guess you could say our pausing point until we get Wanda's movie. I think that her movie will be when she gets the boys back. That's going to be her journey to getting the boys back.
I think her movie being like the first time Wiccan and Speed together fully.
No, but I mean they haven't even announced the movie. But if they don't put one in if they don't start working on one now, like I'm sorry, but Kevin Feige,
strike while the iron is hot. Come on, people.
Like they should announce tomorrow that it's in production.
Right. We were talking about it and just it's tiny nitpicky. And I think I had the captioning on and everyone's saying when she's in that post-credit scene, you can hear both kids. So, and I think I remember seeing it in the captioning, super nitpicky, but clearing it out.
But I think she's going to be going to Doctor Strange for help. I don't think a lot of people are like, she's going to be the antagonist. I think that she is going to be going to him for help.
So this kind of came to mind yesterday as I was kind of just doing some research. There's a story that it takes place with a different character. It's a Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom story.
The one you're talking about.
It's called Triumph and Torment. And essentially what's happening is that Doctor Doom's mother, she is locked in hell. Her soul is locked in hell. And once a year, he goes to hell to try to save her. And because he can't do it, he asks Strange for help to do so. They could flip that story and Wanda could go to Strange and be like, look, my kids are locked away. I need your help. And obviously that would put boundaries between the two of them. And maybe she does some things that Strange doesn't like, and it kind of puts them against each other at sometimes. And we see them battle it out, but ultimately she is the Wanda that we know, and it leads into something down the road. But it would be a really cool thing to see them kind of team up to save Tom and Billy from where they are, because we obviously know they're locked away somewhere, whether that's in the Darkhold, whether that's in hell.
I think they'll avoid using hell and the direct word demon just because China box
yeah.
office is such a
Yep.
big part of the
We're-
MCU.
Like I've like, and again, it's just a theory, but I'm very confident that what they're going to do is take a lot of these more demonic entities and roll them into the Sorcerer Supreme's, main
Chthon.
villain, who we've already been. I don't even think I don't think it's going to be him. I think it's going to be Dormammu, and a lot of these things are going to get rolled into Dormammu because we're already familiar with him. We already know that he can't interact directly with our dimension, so that leads to, some of the things that we've had from Nightmare, some of the things that we've had from Mephisto. I think that we could even eventually get Chthon, but I think that we're going to get him as the world's first dark sorcerer. I don't think we're going to get him as an elder god, which is, the genesis of chaos magic and whatnot. And we're getting super into deep divey comic book stuff. But I actually want to also bring up a comic book run that involves Doctor Strange and Wanda, where Doctor Strange created a school of magic, and one of the instructors at the school is the Scarlet Witch. And I think that anyone who thinks that Wanda is going to be an antagonist is mistake. I also think it would be a mistake, because the last thing that we need is another strong, powerful woman who has to deal with emotions, and now all of a sudden she's a villain. Like, we don't need that on screen.
And I think the show went out of its way too to be like, even at one point Wanda says maybe she is, and then she, once it's all done and she sees what she's done, she's like, I've made my mistakes and now I have to try to right things. Like, I don't want them to regress that. I don't want her to become the villain of the story again.
So when we had first only heard about WandaVision, and even in the first few episodes, what I thought was going to happen was this hex that she's created was going to cause, she was going to lose control of it and was going to cause the multiverse to break, and that would lead into Doctor Strange. Obviously, they had something else far more poignant in mind. I do think Wanda is going to be basically, if not a co-lead, the premier supporting character in Doctor Strange 2. I don't think she's going to be an antagonist directly. I think what's interesting to me is, and knowing that Strange filmed a cameo that they didn't use, is like, so New Jersey ain't that far from New York. And if Doctor Strange is like monitoring magic, and remember in Thor Ragnarok, as soon as Loki and Thor popped in New York, Strange was like, come here, what's going on? So the fact that he wasn't aware what was going on in New Jersey seems unlikely to me. So I think he knew what was going on, didn't feel he needed to get involved. And they're going to meet on, if not equal terms of, we have similar powers, we can train and help each other out, and they will be cohorts, not antagonists.
I think we're going to get a very similar, but he's my friend, so is I sort of moment between the two of them.
And so maybe that's where I'm thinking of as well. Maybe you're not thinking of antagonist in a purely classical. They might have met.
So they were both at the portal sequence.
They were both. They never physically
Yeah,
I don't think they share. They haven't shared dialogue on screen.
No, there you go.
I don't even know if they've been in the same frame other than the wide angle of portals.
Probably not. But so maybe not like an antagonist as far as purely classical, where it's like all my motivation, but I'm saying maybe antagonist in the definition, but not necessarily as far as we know with the MCU, where this person, Thanos is clearly bad. He wants to kill all these people, but her motivations could make her much more of an antagonist, where it's like if she goes full-blown Scarlet Witch and she goes full-blown House of M, and her pure motivation is to find her kids in whatever different multiverse dimension they may be in, you could be getting a much more antagonistic character, whereas you're not going to lose all of the character development that she has done, but her motivations are going to be strictly selfish in that she wants her children to be back. So I don't necessarily agree that she'll be like the MCU. She'll be the Marvel Disney character where it's like, oh, you're clearly good and we like you. I think she's going to be nuanced and layered and she's going to have a lot to deal with.
Well, what I think is interesting is so much of what Agatha was talking about to Wanda in this episode is how if she lets herself over to the Scarlet Witch, she's going to destroy the world. She's going to be evil, blah, blah, blah. And what I think is interesting is I think that says more about how Agatha views things than what the reality might be. To Agatha's mind, if someone has that much power, the only inevitable conclusion is going mad with power and destroying the world. Do I think Wanda is going to make some selfish decisions that may cause unfortunate repercussions? Absolutely. Do I think she's going to be an outright villain? No way. Because I think this series of television already did a really nice job of playing with a nuanced person who we saw has done immoral things out of selfish need, which came to a head in this episode where we finally saw her realizing how she's impacted the other people. The realization that these other people who were living these fake lives that Wanda created for them in her TV show was still cognizant enough of what was going on.
Talk about another impactful scene. I know we're just real quick because I don't have a lot more time to hang out on the channel, but like talk about another impactful scene where like Agatha pulls down all the spells that like was everyone over the town, and they're all just like angry, and they're like, when we sleep we're getting your nightmares, and it's like that scene to me is so impactful too, because like you're just adding another layer to things that she's learning and things she wasn't even like fully aware of because she's been doing. Maybe that leads directly into where we're talking about with that end credit scene and in Multiverse of Madness.
Well, this is interesting. Do you think Agatha wanted to destroy the world and that is why she wanted the power, or do you think she thought she's the only one strong enough to control it? I think Agatha, based on her experiences, sees the worst in people always. Whereas Wanda has a more gray view of the world.
I would also go maybe Agatha's a little power hungry to where
absolutely she's power hungry. That was her, if someone said boil down Agatha's motivation for why she was there in the Hex, and she's power hungry. She wanted the power.
I disagree. I don't think she wants the power. She wants to make sure that power doesn't escape. Well, she wants it to end.
Yeah, she said it in the episode. She takes it from the power of the people who are undeserving, and she didn't think that Wanda was deserving.
Yeah, I think that when we get back to Agatha, we're gonna see that she is kind of the Bendu of magic users. She's in the middle. She's not really
the new Loki.
That's what I was hoping. I really like. I
like your use of Bendu there, by the way. That's nice.
I want her to be the new Loki.
He's my second favorite Star Wars character. But I think that she is going to be. She's not on the side of good or evil. She's just on the side of balance. And while she was painted very much to be evil in this show, I think that when we finally get more, like dive more deep into her, she cares about keeping the balance of magic, not about doing good or doing bad.
You clarified that a little, because I was going to say, wasn't Thanos also on the side of balance?
I would say yes, but again, that's what makes that to me. That's what makes Thanos a compelling villain, is because his motivation is understandable.
Yes.
Same with Killmonger.
Yes.
And even then, Thanos in Endgame has a very different motivation than, Infinity War than in Endgame. In Endgame, he's like, I don't give a fuck. I just want you all to die.
Because it's Thanos from a different time.
Yes, it's his.
I like the Agatha comparison to Loki, because when we first met Loki, he was an outright villain, and the more time we spent with him, the more of an anti-hero or even protagonist. I mean, by the time Thor Ragnarok rolls around, he's still causing Thor trouble, but he's a good guy.
Yes.
So, and obviously we have a Loki TV show coming where he's going to be our protagonist.
It's also interesting because he is a form of magic. Like, what could he play into this as well? And we learned in this show that Agatha has.
Imagine if Agatha shows up in the Loki show.
I mean, look, Agatha has one kind, Doctor Strange has one, Wanda's got the Scarlet Witch, and Loki has one as well. And he learned that from his mother, obviously.
Mhm.
Yes.
Thor's mother, rather. And she had said that she was raised by witches.
Yes.
And
Great point.
it's kind of strange how it's all coming back together. And like
I was trying to remember where I've heard this before, and then I realized it was you on your show yesterday saying the same thing.
they're starting to build this corner of not just magic, but this like witch realm, the witchcraft, and that's different from magic. It's much more of a witchcraft style of building going on, and I'm all for it. Like I think it'd be really cool.
Well,
It's also
very witchy.
I like how the MCU started out very sciencey, and then they brought in the cosmic, and now they're rounding it out with the magic and witchcraft.
well, and it goes back to, we've talked about it here before, but it goes back to the original Thor where they talk about how science and magic are the same thing, but now the MCU is going out of its way to be like, well, however,
Well, that's the thing is they used Thor to say, hey, science and magic are the same thing, but now we're starting to see Thor doesn't know what magic is.
right.
Like he had no idea what he was talking about because
Right.
he didn't know what magic is.
And that's what I love about it. And like with Loki messing with timelines and the way that Endgame messed with timelines and what we're seeing with Multiverse of Madness stuff, like I just like that so much of this is all coming to a head in a cool way where we're really expanding out and exploring the different sides of the MCU that we never thought we'd see.
Real quick on that note, I have to jump off. I have to go to work. Pleasure, gentlemen. I love you all. I love
You're
you all in the
fired.
chat,
Bye,
too.
Dan.
Okay, I'm fired. Love you guys. Bye.
Love you. Bye.
So I actually want to bring up something that I just it came to me. I don't think that this is anywhere close to what's going to happen, but it's very it came to my mind with the imagery that they used as Wanda became the Scarlet Witch. It looked very Phoenix Force-y to
It
me.
did. Yeah.
And
Well,
I
it's
was
that-
wondering, is like, could we be looking at what's going to be the MCU's Phoenix? And not so much in a name, but in the themes that happen in the Phoenix Force like saga.
I get where you're
And,
coming
and
from.
the themes with, you know, the power starts to corrupt Wanda. Not the
I mean, that I can see.
like,
but
and I'm just wondering, like, is that where they're going to go? And is this eventually how we do get
It
the
seems
X-Men in the MCU? Like,
Agatha was talking about. That's kind of what it's like. You know, you have no idea what you've done, or you have no idea what you have unleashed. Could she be referring to that or something else?
I think that could be referring to a little bit of Wanda's origin as the Scarlet Witch in the comics, which is meant to be a vessel for Chthon. And the reason that she's able to use chaos magic in the comics is because she's received Chthon's blessing.
Mm-hmm.
But it could be a very interesting way to bring the X-Men into the MCU by using like their biggest villain to create them. I don't know.
So many theories.
I'm just using deep cut comic book knowledge and like trying to like do the Charlie Day like fucking
Okay, so listen here.
connect the dots.
I would love it to be that, but I think it's just them like patting themselves on the back for setting it up on last week's episode when you saw her when she stared into the Soul's gem, where you see that outline of her as the Scarlet Witch. I think that's like that whole great reveal in this episode is
to be it.
Yep, always destined to be it. This is her fulfilling her destiny.
Can we talk about the Darkhold? We haven't talked about the Darkhold at all.
Let's talk about it.
Oh, you mean this Darkhold?
That
Okay,
Darkhold.
hold on a second. Leave this up real quick because this is what I wanted to bring up. If you look on the left page, does that look a lot like the world coming together in Thor: The Dark World?
Kind of looks like the Death
Yes.
Star.
Yes,
It does. Yes, it
And-
does.
and I'm starting to think that this is pertaining to the Scarlet Witch is going to be the one who opens up the multiverse.
Yes.
Is that-
Yes.
I've been thinking that for a bit, which is, I mean, we thought it might happen here in this show, but I'm still contending that Wanda is the catalyst of that.
I think she's the
situation.
reason.
Yeah.
I can't
would
think of
also
these
like
books
to
and these
point-
witches without every song from Wicked immediately playing in my head. I'm like, the wizard and I'm goddamn it.
I would also like to point to the page on the right and the very Cthulhu or
Yep.
Chthon-esque imagery that's being conjured up with that.
100%.
But also, as we're talking about the Darkhold is already has I mean, you're not wrong.
Wait. Starbucks uses chaos magic? Is that what we're confirming?
That
here?
explains
That
so
makes
much.
sense why
That
I willingly
explains
paid
so
$12 for a cup of coffee.
The
When we get our
Darkhold
names
has
wrong,
already
is it a
been shown to us twice technically in the MCU.
Yep.
It's appeared in Agents of Shield and had a very important relevance in that season. It has also appeared in Runaways.
Yep.
But it did not look like this.
It was a completely different looking book. And that was season 4 of Shield, by the way.
Yeah, so now I'm wondering, was that the Darkhold? Or is this like the true is this the true Darkhold? Are there different Darkholds? Is that just what they're gonna call every witch's book? What are we getting into with the Darkhold?
It's interesting. I kind of feel like it might just come down to them subtly or not so subtly retconning what it looked like and just moving forward with their version.
I'm also it also makes me wonder could we get or are we going to get a new Nico? Because she's one of the preeminent magic users in the Marvel universe. She also in that story arc where Doctor Strange has a magic school, she is also one of the instructors in that school, along with another Marvel show on Hulu that was canceled. Damian Hellstrom was also an instructor at that magic
canceled?
school. It was, yes.
It was, yeah.
Oh.
That was the last bit of Feige getting rid of
Marvel TV shows that he didn't like.
Fair.
They basically unceremoniously dropped it and then canceled it.
I mean, I still am an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fan for what it's worth.
I'm an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fan too.
So am I.
I think that there's a possibility we see a lot of characters we've already seen that are quote unquote in the MCU, but they're just going to kind of slowly retcon them and make their own version.
Yeah. I assume that we're not going to get Nico from the show. Are we going to get Nico in the MCU? Because I would love it if we've kind of made this transition of, hey, we've got an Earth-based section of the MCU, we've got our cosmic section of the MCU. If we get our mystical section of the MCU where they can start doing, hey, we've got our Earth-based team up, then we've got a cosmic team up, then we've got a mystical team up, and all of these team ups are then gonna, it'll be an Avengers movie for one, Avengers movie for one, Avengers movie for one, and then when we get to that next Infinity War Endgame level event, it's all of them coming together.
Yeah,
and we need more mystical heroes if that's going to happen.
Well, so that leads me because for those who may not know, the Darkhold is responsible for creating a lot of versions of characters in the Marvel universe. One of them, the Darkhold, is responsible for creating the first ever vampire, which is a big deal. And who do we know that is coming at some point down the road? We have
Blade.
Could this be the way
Motherfucker
Blade possibly gets his way into the MCU via the Darkhold?
It's a very interesting idea because as we're exploring this stuff more, the other thing is Ghost Rider can't be far behind either.
That's true. That is
true. We've got Morbius. We know Morbius is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So Morbius exists. Ghost Rider's coming. I would not be shocked even if we get some sort of man thing. I
do want to say real quick to David McKay's point, TV before WandaVision is MCU canon.
Yes.
There's no way around it. I know it was a contemptuous relationship between Kevin Feige and Ike Perlmutter, but it is MCU canon. Like,
Yeah,
the
Nick
things that-
Fury was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
yes, Lady Sif was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Mhm.
Certain, the staff was found in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. There's a lot of things that happened in that
I'm
show.
still
that-
bugged that Tony and Cap never knew that Coulson was still alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that also bugged me.
And
but-
I mean, we also forget, and I think we brought this up previously, but Agent Carter, like Feige helped oversee that. Like,
yes,
that show was done by the studio side for the most part.
Jarvis was in Agent
Endgame.
Carter. Well, yes, but also was in Agent Carter. So
Yeah.
like, so there is a lot of connective tissue to the cinematic MCU from those television shows that we don't really like to talk about. But
And I mean, look, we all know that Charlie Cox is in Spider-Man 3, it sounds like, and like I don't think they're gonna just like hard reboot it. I've moved away from that the more I think about it. Like, it might be a soft reboot where they can kind of leave things up in the air, but that stuff happened, and Feige's aware. Feige's aware that the fans care about some of that.
I wholeheartedly believe they're going to use Multiverse of Madness and No Way Home to pick and choose the parts of the previous television universe that they want to move into the overall MCU. I think that it's called No Way Home for a reason, because the parts that they don't want are going to have no way home.
Yeah, and again, like, we have Multiverse of Madness afterwards, right? So anything is possible. And anything can happen. We don't know who will show
David
up.
McKay, you are incorrect. Lady Sif appears in a few episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yep.
So it's not the only part of TV that appears in the movies.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds.
And there are parts of the movies that appear in the TV show.
There's a lot. There's definitely a lot.
Well, is there anything else that we want to dive into with this one? Or are we any last thoughts before we get the hell out of here with WandaVision?
I think that's a good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, guys, we did it. For the last couple of weeks, we got to sit down and hang out and talk all things WandaVision. I'm happy, Jake, we finally got you over here. But guess what, guys? This isn't the end. This is only the beginning, because we'll be back in 2 weeks talking all things Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
What is the PJCN water cooler chat if not the MCU persevering?
Fucking put it on a shirt. Let's go. Wow.
Yeah, we'll be back in 2 weeks to talk about the premiere of Falcon and the Winter Soldier
with our new
we'll be here
T-shirts.
every Saturday afternoon.
Can we be here next week to talk about the making of WandaVision?
Sure.
Because I'm actually really curious about this episode of the making of WandaVision.
Me too.
Not that I'm not saying it's an episode of WandaVision before anybody goes and claims that, but they are releasing next week a making of WandaVision documentary, kind of similar.
Like Mandalorian Gallery. Yeah.
Yes, similar to the gallery series for The Mandalorian. They're doing that for WandaVision, and I'm so excited because I want to hear Jack Schaefer and Matt Shankman talk about this and how they plan this out. I want to hear them talk about this for hours.
I hope it's an hour long. I hope it's an hour long. Probably won't be, but whatever.
Oh my God. Look, I've said it before, but
this
if
is
they
the type of
found
thing Marcus would do, not
Yeah.
Joey.
I have said it before, but if they found a way to do a making of WandaVision, but make it a episode of WandaVision, my mind would be so fucking blown. I would love it. I don't think that that's what it's going to be, but if they found a way, I don't know how you top that.
I don't either, man. God damn. What a show. I'm so happy I got to hang out and talk with you guys. Starting with the handsome cheese himself. Where can everyone find you, Eric?
You can find me on Twitter at handsome_cheese. Soon I'll change it to hand_some_cheese. But you can find me there where I give mini reviews of movies I'm watching. I'm literally 20 minutes away from being done with Coming to America. So stay tuned for that review. And you can find me here on the Bajunkin Thursday nights for Ramble On About Movies with the other handsome one, Handsome Dan.
That's it.
That's it.
And how about you, Dwayne?
You can find me anywhere and everywhere on the internet at Burkmade. Please check out my YouTube channel where I've been doing a show called Technical Difficulties. It's all about helping you work through your technical problems on streaming and computer-ish stuff, broadcasty type stuff. You can also find me on Twitch later today, where normally it'll be a community game night. But what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be tearing down my entire desk setup, and I'm going to be putting it back together with my brand new Elgato key lights that I just got.
Nice.
And I'm moving a lot of things around. I also have some LED lights that I'm going to be putting together, but I'm going to be putting together my entire streaming setup on stream, so you can watch me, do that, ask me questions, why I'm doing things, putting things in certain places. But please check it out. You can also find me on Tuesday talking about Children of Blood and Bone with Maxwell Haddad and Aiden Cossack. I'm so excited about this book. I've got so many thoughts, and I can't wait to share them with you all.
I cannot wait to hear you guys talk about it. And Dwayne, it's always a pleasure to have you here.
It's always a pleasure to be here.
Good. I'm glad. We want to keep you around all the time. I just love you, Dwayne. I miss you, man. Jake, what about you? Where can we find you?
Real quick, I can attest that Dwayne's Technical Difficulties show is amazing. It's helped me through a lot of stuff. So, Dwayne, keep rocking, man. Appreciate it. Social media everywhere. Qui-Gon Jake. You can find me at a certain point of view. Talking Schmodown on a weekly basis. I also do a show called Apocalypse Movies. Just movie talk, talking movies and television, all that good stuff. Doing fantasy drafts and watch-alongs and stuff like that. So, yeah, just I'm pretty much everywhere.
How many N's are in that, Qui-Gon?
There are 2 N's because someone else took them before I did. Thank you, Dwayne.
And my friend Maxwell, where can everyone find you, buddy? Did Max freeze?
I think Max froze.
I think he froze.
I thought Max is frozen. I thought so too, but I think Max is straight up frozen. Well, you guys can find Max instead of Maxwell over on Twitter, and you can find him here at the Pajukin, where he's going to be talking about books and movies and doing stuff with me. And there he's gone. He's
gone.
We lost Maxwell. You guys can find me at Twitter and Instagram at PJ_Campbell. You can find me at the Movie Trivia Schmodown, where I write the questions. Be nice to the question writers. We're only human. Season is in full swing. Thank you for everyone who watched the pay-per-view last night. And you guys can just find me here hanging at the Pajukin with all these fine folks. Until next time, we'll see you, everyone. Adios.
Unusual couple,
Oh, I don't think that was ever in question.
At last,